The legacy of our past continues to cast a long shadow for thousands of families in Northern Ireland and beyond. On rare days, the historical record shifts, correcting long-held injustices about who was blamed and why. Today was one of those days. A judge ruled 5 people shot dead by soldiers in West Belfast were not a threat to anyone, and that soldiers had overreacted when they opened fire. A conclusion that rewrites decades of the official narrative. Those who died were a priest, Father Noel Fitzpatrick, Patrick Butler, who was 38 and the father of 6 children, then 3 teenagers, John Dougal, who was 16, 15-year-old David McCafferty, and Margaret Gargan, who was the youngest victim at just 13. A memorial will be held for them in West Belfast this evening. Ita Dungan is there for us.
This is the Springhill estate in West Belfast, where on the 9th of July 1972, 5 people, as you said, the youngest 13-year-old girl and the oldest a 42-year-old priest, were shot dead by soldiers from the King's Regiment. July 1972 was the most violent month in the most violent year of the Troubles. In that month alone, nearly 100 people lost their lives. It's 54 years ago since the killings happened here in Springhill, and today the families of those killed received some of the answers that they've been searching for. Kelly Bonner spent the day in court as the coroner delivered his findings from an inquest into their deaths.
Justice after 54 years. The families of the 5 people killed in West Belfast in July 1972 left court today after hearing the Army lost control in a number of cases and overreacted to a perceived threat. Father Noel Fitzpatrick and father of 6, Patrick Butler, were wholly innocent, unarmed and posed no threat when killed.
I began this journey in the early 90s. Today I can complete it. And despite every sacrifice and hardship, I would do it again. Today we speak the truth. My daddy was an innocent man. Today we restore his dignity, and today we can finally let him rest in peace. Paddy Butler will always be remembered as he truly was, a loving father, a gentleman, and our hero. Paddy Butler was innocent.
David McCafferty was unarmed at the time he was shot, and although he was a member of the Fianna, he wasn't engaged in activity and was deemed an innocent victim. John Dougal was killed as he was running away from danger. The 16-year-old was a member of the Fianna, the youth wing of the IRA. The coroner said he was satisfied he was unarmed, but not satisfied he was acting innocently. 13-year-old Margaret Gargan was shot directly in the face and was chatting to her friends when she was shot.
My mummy didn't function for years. She was addicted to sleeping tablets, nerve tablets, chain smoked. She died at 57. So she never got over Margaret. That was like a death sentence to her.
Coroner Mr Justice Schofield concluded that the force used in all 5 shootings in the Springhill estate was not reasonable and not in compliance with the yellow card in the Army's rules of engagement. No warning was given before the shootings. For the families, the trauma of that day will never leave them.
The bottom line is there was 5 British citizens murdered on British streets by British soldiers. I personally don't think they should let it go there. I think those soldiers should go to court, be charged for what they've done, and then sent home. But that's truth and justice. Today we just got truth.
In a statement, the MOD said, "We acknowledge the coroner's findings in the Springhill inquest and are considering them carefully. We remain firmly committed to supporting our veterans and to the delivery of truth, recovery, reconciliation and closure. This case is part of the complex legacy of the Troubles, which affected so many families and communities." The conclusion that the soldiers overreacted and ultimately lost control is something that the families say they've known for the last 54 years. But today they say they are now relieved that it's now on record that the Army used unreasonable force against their loved ones. They say their fight for justice has now been won. Kelly Bonner, BBC Newsline at Belfast Crown Court.
3 of those killed, the coroner said, posed no threat to anyone. A 4th person, 13-year-old Margaret Gargan, the coroner said, posed no risk at all. And the force used against 16-year-old John Dougal, the coroner described as not reasonable. The families have been waiting for answers for decades. Some, as Michael Fitzpatrick has been finding out, didn't live to see today.
It's been a long and difficult journey to justice for the Springhill families. After almost 54 years of battling for the truth, they say the conclusion of the inquest represents a chance for their loved ones to have their voices heard again. Jacqueline Butler was 20 months old when her father Patrick was shot dead. The inquest found clear evidence he'd been assisting Father Noel Fitzpatrick at the time of his killing.
My daddy, what I was told, was a family man, loved his family, he was a hard worker, but also loved the community and loved the chapel. He was a warden when the chapel was being built. But my mummy always put a brave face on, but when we were all in bed, we used to listen to her cry on her own, because that's the kind of, she was a strong woman. And she went on to go to university and ended up the manager of the nursery. So, but she was broken-hearted. She was never the same.
Harry Gargan was 12 when his 13-year-old sister Margaret was killed. She was shot while heading home from a community centre to check on siblings.
Margaret was a bit of a tomboy, but she was a leader. She was the boss. My mummy didn't tell you off. She sent Margaret to tell you off. I seen Margaret not long after she was shot. Me and my father went to the neighbour's house, meetings, and she was down on a corrugated sheet. You could just see a wee bullet wound to the side of her head. And people were discussing how to get her out because there was no ambulance coming into the area. So that memory would never leave me. And the fact in our family was very bad, especially our mother. Our mother never got to come to terms with Margaret's death. In the last 2 years from the inquest, I've had 3 siblings die. And it has really traumatised myself again, over again. It was very hard because Margaret's twin Bernadette would have went to that inquest every day, and she's not here to find out what happened, which was very important.
Betty Kennedy was just 7 when her older brother David McCafferty was killed. The 15-year-old was one of 7 children and loved nature and calling in on Mother Teresa and her nuns when they lived in the area.
He was good friends with the nuns. He was very close with Mother Teresa and the nuns. He actually stole paint on my dad to go around and paint for them. And he came back and my dad said, "Where'd the paint go?" He said he was covered in paint, that he had to help the nuns because they needed it.
The coroner said it was likely he'd been assisting some nuns before he was shot.
My mum just suffered, like she really, really suffered after that. And she was never the same. My family was never the same. It was just too difficult, and it was too hard to talk about because we wouldn't talk about it knowing the effect it had on my mum. And I don't even believe my mum ever went to his grave. I don't think she could ever bring herself to go.
The families of the 5 people who were shot dead in this part of West Belfast have often said their killings were overshadowed by other events which took place in July 1972, the bloodiest month of the Troubles. Despite this, they say they are determined that their loved ones won't be forgotten. Michael Fitzpatrick, BBC Newsline in West Belfast.
The entire community here has been hugely impacted what happened on that July day, and later this evening they'll gather here at the Memorial Garden to remember their loved ones and for the community to show support for those families who campaigned and tirelessly worked to find out the truth about what happened to their loved ones on the 9th of July 1972.
Ita in West Belfast, thank you. Well, while the families were listening to conclusions of the Springhill inquest in Belfast, British and Irish ministers were meeting at Hillsborough Castle with legacy issues top of the agenda. Afterwards, the Irish Foreign Affairs Minister, Helen McEntee, said she was reassured that whatever changes are made to Labour's Troubles Legacy Bill, they will be in line with previous joint commitments to victims. Our political correspondent, Gareth Gordon, reports.
By accident, not design, the Springhill findings began dropping as the British and Irish governments met to discuss the legacy of the Troubles, and at the same venue where they had launched the new Troubles Bill last September.
Dealing with the legacy of the Troubles is hard. And that is why it has been for so long the unfinished business.
And so it's proven. The Irish government today expressed disappointment at the bill's slow progress, but added,
I have absolute confidence, and again I can say this, that the commitment that Secretary of State Hilary Benn has given us is that what was agreed last September is what will be faithfully translated into legislation, that it will be ECHR compliant, that all victims will be treated equally.
As for Springhill, there was only time for an initial reaction.
We will all need to read the full coroner's report, which I haven't yet had an opportunity to do so, but I want to take this opportunity to express my profound condolences to the families on the terrible loss they suffered all those years ago.
As the findings of the Springhill inquest were just read out today, it reminds us of the long wait for truth and information that families really have had to endure and the burden that they've had to bear. And we're thinking today of all of the families of those 5 people who lost their lives that day in 1972.
But is the British government trying to stop inquests like the one into what happened at Springhill from going ahead?
These particular cases need to happen, they need to go on, and I think that's why the British government is shameful in what actions they're trying to bring forward. So I think what they are trying to do is to hurt families, because that's what they're doing. They're hurting families who are trying to get days like this.
For now, the governments remain in step, but as always with legacy, the road is long. Gareth Gordon, BBC Newsline.